It's good to be learning more about this. This next session is something that we've been working on over the last 3 years. We've had a various few guises of this session, and we're trying to find the right one that fits. So I'm going to name and shame. If I see any white middle-aged men leaving the room right now, they will be named and shamed as the day goes on. So hoping that's enough to make you sit here, because this session really will be a good one and really will be insightful and really will look at how the world is evolving, how media is evolving, and what you need to do to ensure you have the right workforce, you're appealing to the right clients, you're appealing and understanding one another and getting a good grip of what happens in the industry. It is a great panel. It is our first long panel of the day. So without further ado, I'm going to invite them on stage, but I'm going to invite the moderator up first, who is another good friend and ambassador of the event. It is Sam Phillips, the CMO for OMG UK and UK OMG ETHNIC MD. Woo!
Hello everyone. Do the panellists want to come and join me? I don't really need to be up here by myself, I don't think. Great. Thank you. Hello guys. I'm going to start off by just doing a bit of a 1, 2, 3 before I hand over. So first of all, a bit about me, number one, so that you kind of know why I'm here today and why I think this is so important. So I am, as Jeremy said, CMO of Omnicom Media Group in the UK, and I'm also the Assistant Dean of Omnicom's Global Leadership Programme, Omnicom University. But for the purposes of today, increasingly, I've spread across everything to do with the diversity sphere and inclusion sphere for Omnicom Media Group. So, for example, I've chaired OmniWomen, which is our programme driving the seniority and numbers of women. I founded OMG ETHNIC, which is now the leading multicultural marketing division in the UK. I am a very big proponent of all things in the disabled sphere. I have a disabled child, that's my motivator and driver. But also I've spent a lot of time over the last few years getting to know and understand things about other areas of what I'm calling the inclusion wheel, things like spending time with Stonewall to truly understand what it's like for the LGBT community and how we can better work and serve them in the communications industries. And then the list goes on if you think about things like age or regionality or mental health or whatever. So there's a lot of areas that we're going to cover here. We can't possibly cover them all. But the second point is that I'm chairing 2 panels today. This one, and I hope you'll come back later. What we've decided to do is to actually split the panels so that one is more focused on the HR side of things, our people that work in all of our companies, and also looking at recruitment and that sort of thing. And that's the panel we've got here. And then after the break, please do come back, because we're going to be looking at things from the more commercial perspective, because I think it is proven now that greater diversity and inclusion measures lead to greater business performance. So we're going to be discussing that later on. So the 2 areas to cover off, that was the second point. And the third point to say is that this is the 3rd time that I've been asked to chair a panel of this ilk here at the Festival of Media. And it's a real pleasure, and I think the numbers in the room have gone up. This is a great thing, because it shows that more people are talking about it, and I think what we need is more people doing something about it as we move forwards. So that's enough from me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to very briefly tell you who is here, and then ask them to spend a minute telling you a little bit about themselves. So this is Verra Budimlija from MEC. She's Chief Strategy Officer in the UK. And her specialty topic for the day is things to do with age, which is something that MEC have been working on. So they're all going to cover sort of all areas of diversity, but they've got their specialty areas of interest. Next up, we have Shelley. Shelley is the CEO of the Female Quotient and also the founder of the Girls Lounge, so you can tell which her angle might be. And lastly at the end there, we've got Jonathan Allen, JA, who's Sales Director at Channel 4. And for anyone who's UK-based, or actually sort of globally based, given the brilliant stuff that they did with the Paralympics, which has spread all around the world, Channel 4 are really superb in the UK at actually driving forwards and understanding everything to do with the inclusion and diversity agenda. So there we go. Enough from me. Verra, would you like to just spend a minute or so just telling us a bit about kind of why you're here, what your interest is, and who you are.
Of course. Right, so hello. So I'm Verra, Budimlija. So at MEC, we like, I suspect many of you in the room have been more and more aware of diversity issues over the past 2 or 3 years. And we've had a good, long, hard look at ourselves, and we thought that we were doing pretty well on the diversity agenda. When we look at the number of females in senior positions, we're doing pretty well. When we were looking at ethnicity, we were doing pretty well in some areas of our business. But that is only the tip of the iceberg when you start to think about diversity. When it comes to things like age, we realised that actually the average age in our building is 28, and there are only 2% of people who are over the age of 45. So this started to really concern us, and so we introduced a number of initiatives specifically around age that positively discriminates in some areas. Age, when we're hiring people. We also do a lot of reverse mentoring because it's a cultural thing also to think that older generations don't offer a fresh new thinking, that they are somehow less dynamic than the younger people in the workforce, which is clearly not the case. So reverse mentoring, where we get young and old to work together, is one thing that we do. Introducing quotas is obviously another. But also opening the debate. Part of the problem is that people don't talk about these things. And by raising your hand and saying, actually, I might have an unconscious bias towards younger people and therefore not hiring older people, just talking about it, making people more conscious of their hiring decisions is actually a big step forward.
Great, thank you. Shelley.
God, my journey's quite weird, actually. I was in the business of research, so when you get those shitty surveys on the internet, sorry, not sorry, but I'm the mother of that invention. So I went from market research to now the business of equality, really by accident, and I called my company the Female Quotient. First came the intelligence quotient, IQ, then came the emotional quotient, EQ, now comes the female quotient, FQ. When you put women in any equation, the equation gets better. And I guess I'm just sick of the conversation about equality. I mean, why do we keep talking about it? We keep admiring the problems, but it's time to activate solutions for change. And if we truly understand that diversity is good for business, why the hell are we going backwards? Which is really, the issue. And so thank God I'm in research, because we're now going to bring measurement for accountability to the table. And I think that's really what it is. It's what Verra said about, really being conscious of the decisions that we make. It's really not that complicated. It's a step change. We need to make a decision that we're going to improve. Here we are. Here's where we want to go. Let's just create those steps towards change and create accountability around it. And then I also created something called the Girls Lounge, which is one of the pillars of the female quotient. The female quotient is all about advancing equality in the workplace. The Girls Lounge is really about creating a community of women working together. And people ask me all the time why I call it the Girls Lounge. We're women, we're ladies. Ladies sounds like a ladies' room, ladies' lounge. There's the boys' club. Why not have the Girls' Lounge? And it really is not about excluding men from the conversation. Women are 50% of the population. We have to include all of us for transformation to happen. But girl is, in the social world, the word for age or life stage. In the corporate world, women at the top have historically been competitive because there's such a scarcity of jobs. Why can't we go back to mindset, being bold, being brave, what this conference is all about, being fearless, supporting one another, working together to activate the changes that we want to see. So that's my journey, and every day I think a new chapter gets written because we are all collectively working together to advance equality, hopefully, in the workplace and create impact in the world.
Lovely. J.A.
So, most of you will know this, hopefully, but Channel 4 is a public service broadcaster in the UK. We've been going for about 35 years. And we have a remit, so we're owned by government, so we're an intervention, I suppose, into the market economy. And we have a specific remit that has a number of things
within it to make us distinctive. And one of the things it says in our remit is that we have to appeal to a society with culturally diverse interests and tastes. So it's really important for us as a broadcaster to obviously show programming that represents culturally diverse interests and tastes, but also that means that the people commissioning the programs, the people making the programs, the people producing the programs, and I guess the ideology within Channel 4 has to be as diverse as we can, or we can never really achieve our remit. So it's been at the heart of the organisation for 30 years. I think we're well known for it. Our audiences in terms of LGBT and BAME are much higher than all other broadcasters in the UK. But there's still lots of work to do, and I guess the job's never finished. So in 2015, we published a 360 diversity charter, and we call it 360 because it's on screen, it's off screen, so behind the camera, and it's actually within Channel 4. It covers all elements of diversity, so BAME, LGBT, disability, social mobility, and covers all the development chain of people, from recruitment to mentoring to leadership programs. And it's been very successful. So we were named the best company in the UK at the National Diversity Awards, and Ernst & Young do the National Equality Standard, so it's the gold standard of represent diversity in the organisation. It's very difficult to get accreditation, and we applied and worked with them last year, and we were the highest rated company in the UK that Ernst & Young had rated in terms of diversity. So what we're doing is working, but we're nowhere near there. I mean, we've still got loads to do, and maybe we'll talk about that later on.
So that's great. What is, I'm going to start with you, Jay, actually, what is your definition of a diverse workforce, and why should we all be looking to ourselves on this? Why is it important?
Yeah, well, I think the simplest definition is you've got to be at least as good as the UK or whichever country, global population you're in. A tougher target probably is, we're based in London, and London actually, those percentiles are higher. So we've got actually targets by 2020 to reach at least the UK population. And that we're not quite there yet. We're pretty much there we're probably there as a company. But where we are struggling a little bit is on leadership. So leadership is different from the whole population, and we've still got a bit of work to do there. Why is it important? I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's about opportunity. I think that, there's a kind of moral thing to do as a business. I think to make sure you're focused on this. But I think it helps creativity. The more different types of people you have in an organisation, we're a creative organisation. Different views, different opinions, different backgrounds from all walks of life makes better creative decisions. And again, it comes back to, particularly for Channel 4, if we don't have a diverse workforce, we don't work with independent production companies that have diversity at their heart, we're not going to have the stories, we're not going to have the programs, we're not going to have the ideas that appeal to and connect with our audiences. And all of the, particularly BME audiences are growing very quickly in the UK, and therefore, actually, to the next session, it's commercially beneficial for us.
Yeah. Same question to you, Shelley.
Well, I mean, I was just at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and they rank countries by equality. And the craziest thing, the United States, 2 years ago, I know we don't have time to have you all guess, but 2 years ago, the United States was 28th out of 144, and last year we dropped to 45, which is absolutely astounding. And it's measured by education, health, diversity in the workplace, and government, and how we really create that. And to me, diversity is not about gender, race, or age. It is about mindset. And as you said, Jonathan, it is about creating the best talent pool. And it's not just about attracting and retaining the best talent, but what needs to change ultimately is culture. I think culture in the workplace is what holds back, especially caregivers. There's men that are predominant caregivers, women as well. It's a caregiver issue. And when you look at how we enter the workforce, we enter 50-50. That's not the problem. We end at about 17%, women in leadership. The problem is in middle management. I call that the messy middle. It's where we have that choice in life. Do we opt in or opt out? We're gaining more responsibility at home, more responsibility at work. We don't know what to do, and one of three things happen. We either leave and take care of our families and then come back, which is really difficult. I don't care what anyone says, very hard. Or we opt into leadership and have that work-life balance issue, which creates a lot of stress and anxiety. Or you do what I did and you start your own company. But why should we be leaving to start our own company, to create our own rules? Because the rules in corporate America just don't work. And so I really do believe a workforce of equality is about having the best talent rise to the top, reimagining the workplace culture, which was written over 100 years ago by men for men, because women just weren't in the workplace. And yet all we've done was adjust and dot the I's and cross the T's, but we never reimagined culture for modern people today with modern life. So I'm hoping that that's what we work on, breaking all the damn rules that make no sense.
I mean, there's definitely an interesting thing, isn't there, where we're still talking about women coming back to work, etc., as opposed to about parenting. And now, I don't know about in other countries, but in the UK, there's legislation that actually, when a woman has a baby or when a couple have a baby, the man can take time off as well. And I think it's about 1% of the UK population that's doing that. So
but you
one
know,
day we'll stop having
that's
this
interesting
conversation.
because Harvard Business Review just wrote a really amazing study that when there's elective paternity leave, men typically don't take it because it shows a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Or they play more golf.
Yeah.
I mean, true.
No, it's interesting.
It's just a fact. And so unless we get to mandatory parental leave with
Yeah.
flexibility,
Yeah.
that might be a great solution to rebalance a little bit.
So, Verra, we've been having these conversations about inclusion and diversity for many years now, and in the trade press, in the national press, all over the place, there is a lot of words being spoken, and yet the dials are moving very slowly, and in some instances, the dials are moving backwards. So, the Institute of Practitioners and Advertising, the IPA in the UK, last year recorded that the number of people who are non-white British has actually gone backwards by a percentage point, despite the energies to point in the other direction. So what's it going to take to move things forwards? And I guess within that is, what's your thoughts and feelings about quotas that you mentioned earlier? How much do we need data to actually give us the evidence to move forwards?
I do think we need evidence. I think that, well, interestingly, if there's something that moves companies quickly to change is seeing commercial return on decisions that they make. And the McKinsey study recently showed that those companies who are more diverse see a 35% higher return investment. So just from a commercial point of view, it's a good thing to do. It's good for business. But going back to quotas, I think that is one way of doing it, and I am a great supporter of quotas. But to be honest, that can only be part of the solution, because as we talked about, it's about culture, and the issue is that currently we tend to hire people that we feel fit our culture, and the problem with that is it means that we're hiring people who are just like ourselves, and we're not even conscious of it. And one of the things that we've introduced at MEC that I think is also part of the solution for all of us is we start to make sure that everyone who is in the position to hire, and actually everyone in our business, should take unconscious bias tests. Now, Harvard have put together a phenomenal amount of work in this area, and there are 6 very easy tests that you can take. They take 3 minutes each, and they cover biases from gender to ethnicity to obesity to age. And not only will it flag whether you have an unconscious bias, because let's face it, we don't deliberately have biases. They are unconscious, and that's what makes them so pernicious, so insidious, that we don't even realize we have them. And by taking these tests, you at least become aware of your bias. And once you become aware of it, and you are able to talk about it, you are able to counterbalance it as well. So I think that is part of the solution as well.
There's some interesting information coming out from Stonewall now, which is looking at the whole area of unconscious bias and saying you don't need to do unconscious bias testing to let you know that you're a little bit racist when you're hiring or something like that. Actually, what we're talking about here is affinity bias, and it is about you are recruiting people like you because they fit with you. So there's some very interesting conversations, cultural and philosophical conversations going on. J.A., can you talk to the room a bit, please, about some of the sort of the benchmarking and auditing that Channel 4 has done to give you your baseline so you know where you are coming from and where you need to go to?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we do a lot of internal measurement, and actually disclosure has been a big part of our effort within Channel 4. Now, clearly disclosure in some areas, gender's pretty obvious mainly, but transgender can be also difficult. Yeah. Disability particularly, people might be a UK thing, maybe globally, but don't like to disclose disability because they think, there's a fear factor of if they disclose that disability, it may affect their careers. And we found, our disability disclosure was low, our figures were low, so we did quite a lot of work internally, and we had a series of people who had disabilities of various types within Channel 4 make films about the disability, and it was, had ADHD, we had, visible disability, mental health issues, and that really improved our disclosure, and again, culturally, made people feel really comfortable, and these were very senior people, with some quite serious conditions in some circumstances, to make it okay. It's a bit like Adam Hill's on Last Leg, is it okay to? Well, at Channel 4, absolutely it is okay to have a disability and still have a great career. So we've done a lot of work on disclosure. So, I mean, the internal bit's fairly easy, and we track it. So we have a quarterly diversity report that goes to the board, so it's a board issue, and the diversity charter is linked to all of our remuneration and bonus targets, so it's an active part of what we do. More broadly in television, diversity is a bigger issue, and I think the whole TV industry has got together. And there's a program called Project Diamond, and this is about actually measuring diversity on screen. So it's been a hugely complicated data tracking exercise, and to be honest, privately in the room of 300, it's taken far too long to deliver. But it's going to launch this year, so that actually will be a transparent and open data pool of how diversity is represented on screen across all UK TV. And obviously, once you start publishing those numbers, clearly there's a lot of accountability and transparency around that. And to a degree, there's probably a bit of competitiveness between the broadcasters, which is going to be a good thing. So yeah, I think all that works, but it does come back to, as TV companies, we need to want to do it as well, and the indies need to want to do it. And, again, we've done quite a lot of things. I mean, because obviously we can focus on our own world, but last year we gave £1 million worth of airtime away free to the advertiser that came up with the best idea featuring disability that we could launch in the Paralympics. So I think, you can do quotas, but it's also good to have some different levers to pull. And we had 110 entries from all the big brands, all the big advertising agencies. And Maltesers won it with an ad that was absolutely fantastic. It was really quite rude, which obviously fits with Channel 4 brand as well. And that ended up being 8 times more effective than any Maltesers ad in the last 10 years. So not only does it, is it great for diversity, it also works for business.
And drove brand affinity as well, didn't it? One quick question to all of you guys, starting with Shelley, please. And then I'm going to open it up to the room, because I'm sure there's some questions out there. When you look around the world with your global view, which companies do you think are getting inclusion and diversity right from a people, HR, recruitment perspective? Who do you admire?
Well, I just want to jump onto something J.A. said, because we started a movement just to your Project Diamond called See Her, with the ANA and the AFE, and it's a really important movement because it's about accountability, and we created a GEM score. So when you talk about a diamond, it is about creating diamonds and being conscious of what we're creating. 60% of women say stereotypes hold them back personally and professionally, and it starts in media. What you see is what you really are inspired by, or what you're inspired by. We've tested 20,000 ads in the last 4 months with GEM, gender equality metrics, to really hold us accountable for how we portray girls and women in media today. And the networks have all come along, really also creating accountability in their program, environment. So I applaud you for doing that. That's how it starts, where we can start seeing progress.
Yeah.
Companies, I think Mark Benioff is doing an amazing job with Salesforce. There's a wage gap. He saw that it was a $3 million delta. He decided to push the button, see where the problem was, and fix it. And it pinched. It hurt him a little bit. but he adjusted, and moving forward, that won't happen anymore. Facebook, I think Facebook with their 2-for-1 recruiting program was amazing, basically putting diversity in the pipeline and rewarding for that. They're now working on the next level of hiring manager because they're white or Asian men, so no matter how diverse the population you show them, they end up hiring people just like them. But it's really taking that step. So I think companies being open-minded and making that step change, whether they're right or wrong, they might make mistakes along the way, but they're activating change, which I applaud.
Great. Fantastic. I'm going to open it up to the floor now. I think there's some microphones to pass around. So who's got a question to put to this panel? Lights. Yes. Gentleman at the front here.
We've heard a lot of initiatives for LGBT women, African American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The most that I have heard are about millennials and baby boomers, but there seems to be a gap with Generation X, and they seem a little bit forgotten, at least in the US and in corporate America. What are your thoughts on Generation X?
Who wants to take that one?
Go ahead.
So, Generation X. Well, look, as soon as we start to kind of put people in boxes, I think that the problem starts. And I think we should be thinking less about generations and more just about having a diverse workforce in totality, and that will mean either blind screening, I think, would possibly help. So when you're hiring people, not to have ages on CVs and so forth. I think it would also help to, as I said earlier, have quotas for certain age groups, as opposed to kind of putting tags against a generation, because you instantly form opinions about behaviour of a whole generation once you put a tag on them such as that. So it's better just to actually look at them more demographically and make sure that you have the right numbers of people within those age groups. So that's what I would argue about any of those type. Millennials is another one, which is a huge issue, because we're instantly categorising and forming kind of shortcuts in our head about what those people are like, which we need to get away from.
This is the first time in history we have 5 generations in the workplace, 4 active, with traditionalists moving out, Gen Z moving in. And one of the things we take for granted is multi-age teams. You can teach Snapchat, but you can't teach experience. And I think that these are really important things to understand the importance of working together. And I don't know if Linda Yaccarino is here, but my girlfriend at NBC, we're doing a lot with mentorship in the moment, having millennials and Gen Xers working together to show how important all of our wisdom is. Wisdom at every age is very important. And a lot of millennials don't respect the older generation because they don't want to work with people their parents' age, and we're so boring. And yet the older generation doesn't respect the younger generation because we think they really just don't get it. And I have to tell you that we all learn from each other, and we should never take that for granted.
Yeah, I suppose my view, I think, Gen X to a degree are in charge. So, that kind of age band is in charge of the corporate world, in charge of society at the moment, politics. It's our role to change things for the future, really. I don't think I wouldn't worry about, I'm probably a Gen X, I don't worry about myself. Yeah. It's more about everybody else.
Great. Yes, Steve.
Thank you. Part of the problem when you're hiring is having sufficient time to be able to produce a balanced shortlist, that everybody on merit is capable of doing the job, but that the shortlist itself is balanced between males, females, disabled, LGBT and so on. And to go out to the market to find that kind of a balance takes time. But the pressure's on agencies, particularly where resources are slim. You need that resource now, you've got to be able to turn that into money from, there just isn't the time to do it. So when the briefs go out to recruiters or headhunters and so on, there isn't that time built in. So you inevitably end up with an unbalanced shortlist. You can do the job, but it doesn't solve your diversity problem. And I wonder how, in future or going forward, to build more time into that planning, rather than the overt quota system, which in itself forces an issue but doesn't necessarily produce the right outcome.
How do we get out of this cycle, guys?
Gosh.
By getting out. I mean, you know, I have a friend that runs a big holding company, called me up and said, we want more African American women in our workplace. I said, great, you're now the keynote speaker at ColorCom, which is a conference full of African American women. I told all the women, bring your resume, you know, and if you want to hire 5 people, then create a pool of 10 African American women and say, pick 5. But if you bring 5 men and 5 women, you might end up with the 5 men. I mean, that sounds so basic, but until you fill the holes that you want to fill, you might have to just show a small population of the types that you want to hire from. Barry Salzberg, the CEO of Deloitte, you know, we were giving a speech, and mine was called Bring Emotion to the Boardroom, and his was Rising the Ranks or something. And he told me that he had just hired a female CEO, and I said, why, to fill a quota, or because you want a more collaborative, you know, environment? And he said, let me tell you, I had 28 employees on my board, 28 people on the board, 25 were men, 3 were women. They never spoke up. I said, what'd you do? He got rid of 5 guys, added 5 more women, 8 out of 28, and all of a sudden the conversations changed. It was more collaborative, it was more creative, it was more qualitative instead of quantitative. And I think it just matters of, you know, really taking that extra time to really think about what kind of talent pool you want.
Yeah, I don't think it's an excuse. I think, you know, agencies have got turnover between 15 and 25%. It's not a surprise. They need to recruit every year at certain levels. You know, so the problem is tactical recruitment. They know, you know, as a business, you know you need to recruit so many people a year. You should be working with, you know, various recruitment agents, and there are specialist recruitment agents you can work with as well in certain areas to build a pool of talent ready to come in. I mean, it's about sourcing up front and looking at the market. I think, you know, just relying on the excuse that I need to bring someone in 4 weeks' time is not really an excuse.
No.
That's a business problem to solve more generally. And I think, you know, again, it's having a slightly more broader approach to it. So we do a lot of apprenticeships at Channel 4. So again, last year was our year of disability. So half those apprenticeships went to people with disability. We funded 25 people with disability to work in indies that we work with on some of the projects. So I think apprenticeships, placements, opportunities for younger people coming in without university degrees is also good. I think we focus too much on graduates probably in the media industry. And again, that opens up the pool to social mobility, but also different kind of ethnic splits as well. So yeah, I think it's possible. I don't really buy the, you know, we haven't got time.
So we have to be strategically conscious, I think. I'm very sorry, I know there's more questions in the room, but we are out of time. So I'm just going to thank this panel for your fabulous contributions and for the questions from the floor. Thank you.